We shall now convene tonight's edition of Night Courts. The newly passed Republican tax overhaul goes into effect today, most of it, but some blue state governors like New York's Andrew Cuomo say the new tax code may actually be illegal because it places a $10,000 cap on state and local property tax deductions.
We're doing the legal research now to see if there is a legal challenge. I think it may very well violate the due process and equal protection laws. It is the most egregious political act I have seen. Not since the Civil War have you seen the states this divided.
Cuomo argues the tax cuts are unconstitutional because they violate the Fifth Amendment, known most for its protection against self-incrimination. But that amendment also protects individuals against seizure of life, property, or liberty without due process. Cuomo, along with California Governor Jerry Brown and New Jersey Governor-elect Phil Murphy, say they are exploring legal challenges to those caps. So let's bring in our legal eagles, criminal defense attorney Vinoo Varghese, who is arguing on behalf of the Democratic governors, and former federal prosecutor Doug Burns, who's arguing the tax law is constitutional. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bream.
All right, Doug, I want to start with you.
Sure.
This is what Democratic political consultant Phil Singer says. It's a no-brainer for them to do this. Failing to aggressively pursue a remedy would be political malpractice. Sounds like he's thinking of not only the potential legal win for them, but really the PR or political battle in taking this on, and that being a potential win.
Well, that's a perfect place to start because it's way more political, of course, than it is legal. Obviously, New York State is a very high tax state, and so to cap the deduction for state and local and real estate taxes at $10,000 does harm people whose taxes are above that measure. But legally, the claim that it's unconstitutional based on equal protection grounds is incredibly weak. Maybe they want to hit the books a little harder and come up with some other avenue. But think about it, Shannon. You have distinctions in the Internal Revenue Code all over the place. Single filing is different than married, okay? If you earn X dollars more than the other person, your taxes are higher. That's what the tax code is. So to say that this distinguishes unconstitutionally against someone whose taxes are higher than $10,000, incredibly weak argument, in my view.
Well, and you're not the only one who thinks that, because David Gamage, who is a professor of tax law at Indiana University's School of Law, says this: I don't understand how they think they have a valid lawsuit here. Vinoo?
Well, the argument that Governor Cuomo should be making is that this is double taxation. See, when you pay your federal income tax, when you pay taxes to the federal government, when you have a tax liability, the way the income tax was created during the Civil War was that you take care of your state and your local property taxes first before you pay anything to the federal government. So that's the premise that Governor Cuomo should start with. And then, from a PR perspective, we talked about PR, the Democrats can now make the argument that they're the party for states' rights. They're the party of limited government, because by eliminating this deduction, the SALT deduction, this deduction, by eliminating or reducing it to $10,000, what's happening is that more money is being given to the federal government, and you can make the argument that it's bloating the federal government.
Well, that's not an argument that I hear Democrats make a lot, Doug, as far as too much money going to the federal government and that it's a bloated mess here. I mean, both parties have been, not too ambitious about cutting spending when it comes down to it. But, what do you make of that potential argument?
Well, I like the way my colleague obviously raises another avenue, which is double taxation, as opposed to that very, very weak equal protection argument. But the reality is, I even think the double taxation is a little weak, most respectfully, and here's why. Because you could say taxing Social Security, taxing Medicare, and income tax, those are triple taxation on your same earnings. So I think it's a tough argument. There was a case out of Maryland, but it said, look, if I'm in Maryland and I earn money in Colorado and Colorado taxes me, don't tax me on the same earnings in Maryland. But that's a little different than here.
Yeah, because there we get into the Commerce Clause, and I don't want to make us all glaze over and go back to law school, but it wouldn't apply in the federal case. I'm going to have flashbacks of the bar exam. But yes, Vinoo, go ahead.
But what I'm saying, actually, I think, Doug, you've raised the case, but that's actually the case that I think will work in the favor of the Democrats if they push this. You had a conservative court with Justice Alito leading the way, saying that taxation, when a Maryland resident was making money and being taxed outside the state, they couldn't get a deduction for that in-state. This is the same kind of argument that the Democrats should be making or may ultimately make here. And look, You don't know where it's going to go, but I think what's going to happen is you're going to have these governors, whether it's Governor Brown, Governor-elect Murphy, or Governor Cuomo, file for a stay, and then it's going to get up to the Supreme Court. And, you know, like nobody ever expected Chief Justice Roberts to save Obamacare. So you just don't know.
Right.
Yeah, and it seems that that seems to be the left's protocol with just about anything that President Trump is able to get done. So much of it is tied up from the travel ban to all kinds of things. In legal battles, most of them filed in the Ninth Circuit, where it makes it really tough for him to get anything done. But Vinoo, I want to ask you what you make of the argument that a lot of people respond and just say, you should put pressure on your state and local leaders to lower those taxes and maybe not expect people to pay for all kinds of programs and do things. Maybe you should cut spending at the state level if you're so worried about how high the taxes are there.
You know, the way that the states work, particularly New York, New Jersey, California, is that there's a level of services that people expect. So, you know, I recently was having this conversation with a friend of mine who went to high school, who's an NYPD captain, and he is a staunch Republican, and he is angry because he says, look, you know, cops, that this bill is going to kill cops, it's going to kill the civil servant because they entered into a contract with the government to buy homes. Why was it important to buy homes? Because property taxes pay for schools. So the cop whose only deduction is that of the mortgage tax deduction is now being limited, is basically, this captain friend of mine was saying it's killing him.
Yeah,
and this is a big Republican guy who's saying this.
There's a lot to dig through, and as we see the reality of it play out, you know, Republicans remain convinced that it's going to be good, and folks, once they get it, will appreciate it, and when they see the difference in their paycheck. So we'll see. But Doug and Vinoo, great to have you both with us tonight. We'll let folks at home decide what they think about your arguments.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
My
being
pleasure.
with us.